The man who never raised his voice. It started with a scream. Not from him. Not from anyone he knew. Just a scream in the middle of a quiet Los Angeles morning. Keanu Reeves had just stepped out of the small, independent cafe near his home, where he ordered the same thing every day: black coffee, 1 sugar, no cream. He nodded to the barista like he always did. He never needed to speak. They knew his order. And more than that, they respected his quiet. Not because he was famous, but because he was kind. But that scream cut through the calm. He turned, almost dropping his coffee, and saw a crowd gathering across the street. A woman, mid-30s, disheveled, crying, stumbled out of a pawn shop. 2 men ran after her. Not fast, not urgent. More like they wanted her back inside, quietly. Like they were trying not to make a scene. But it was too late for that. Keanu crossed the street without thinking. It was in his nature. He didn't like conflict, but he couldn't walk away from it either. "Ma'am," he said softly, holding his hand out but keeping his distance. "Do you need help?" The woman blinked at him. She recognized him. But the shock on her face wasn't about who he was. It was about what she'd seen, what she was running from. And before she could speak, the sirens came. Not 1, not 2, 4. Police cars pulled up within seconds. It was as if someone had already called. Or maybe they were watching the place. The 2 men froze. One of them slowly raised his hands. The other didn't. The woman dropped to her knees and whispered, "Thank God." But then it happened. An officer stepped out, looked at the crowd, then looked straight at Keanu. "You," he said. Keanu turned around. "Me." The officer pointed. "Hands where I can see them." Keanu didn't move at first, not out of resistance, but confusion. "Officer, hands up. Now." And just like that, the crowd went quiet. People pulled out their phones. A couple gasped. A child tugged at their mother's sleeve. And Keanu, he slowly raised his hands. Not angry, not afraid. Just calm. They didn't put him in cuffs, not right away. But they did make him sit on the curb, in front of everyone. Keanu Reeves, the man who once bought motorcycles for a stunt team, the man who once carried groceries for a stranger in New York, now sitting on the sidewalk with dirt on his jeans. While a group of officers argued quietly near their cars, the woman tried to speak. "You've got the wrong person," she said. "He helped me." But they didn't listen. And then a detective arrived, tall, pale, in plain clothes. The others made way for him like he was the only adult in the room. He didn't look at the woman or the crowd. He went straight to Keanu. "You're Keanu Reeves," he said. Keanu looked up, still calm. "Yes, do you know a man named Joshua Clay?" A silence hung in the air like smoke. Keanu blinked. "I haven't heard that name in years." The detective leaned forward. "He filed a report 3 days ago, then disappeared." Keanu shook his head slowly. "I haven't seen Joshua since, I don't know, maybe 10 years. Well, he named you in his statement, said he gave you something important." Keanu furrowed his brow. "What kind of something?" The detective didn't answer. Instead, he reached into his pocket and pulled out a small flash drive, sealed in an evidence bag. "You ever seen this before?" Keanu leaned closer, then pulled back. "No." "Funny, his fingerprints are on it, and so are yours." The crowd had grown. Phones recorded every second. Someone whispered, "This can't be real." Keanu was taken in. Not in cuffs. They didn't dare. But the cameras followed him to the unmarked car like it was a movie set. He didn't speak as they drove. He just stared out the window. The detective glanced at him once, then again. Finally, he said, "You don't seem surprised." Keanu gave a soft, tired smile. "Life doesn't surprise me much anymore, even this." Keanu turned his head. "I've lived through worse." They put him in an interview room, not a cell. Not yet. The walls were gray. The table was cold. The chair was slightly crooked. He noticed everything. He always did. A young officer came in with a tablet. She looked nervous, too nervous. "I just need you to confirm a few details, sir." He nodded. She asked questions, basic ones: birthday, address, recent travels. Keanu answered everything honestly. But then she paused. "Sir, are you aware that the man who accused you was under federal surveillance?" Keanu looked confused. I thought he was a programmer, freelance. He was, but he also had a sealed past, connected to whistleblower groups, data leaks, things that, she stopped talking. The detective had entered the room. He dismissed the officer with a glance. Then he sat down across from Keanu, placed a folder on the table, and opened it slowly. You're being careful with your words, he said, but you're not shocked, not even a little. Why is that? Keanu sighed. Because I know how fast a story can be twisted. The detective tapped the folder. According to this, you and Joshua worked on a project back in 2011. Something about secure encryption. Off-the-grid communication. Ring any bells? Keanu nodded. It was for a film. We hired him as a consultant. He says it wasn't fiction. Keanu frowned. He said a lot of things back then. The detective pulled out a photo. It showed Keanu and Joshua in a warehouse, standing beside a whiteboard covered in code. You were more involved than you're letting on. Keanu stared at the picture. We were curious. He believed in something. I listened. But when he started talking about systems spying on us, about backdoors and everyday apps, I stepped away. Why? Because I didn't know if he was right, and I didn't want to be part of something I didn't understand. The detective leaned forward. He sent that flash drive 3 weeks ago. It contains information on people in power, financial records, back-channel deals, stuff that could ruin lives. Keanu's jaw tightened. And you think I leaked it? No, the detective said. I think he trusted you. Outside the station, reporters gathered. The headlines were already being written. Keanu Reeves linked to underground leak. Starface's secret investigation. Truther setup. But inside, Keanu sat quietly. Until finally, the door opened again. This time, it was someone else. An older man. Not police, not FBI. Someone who wore power like a second skin. A man whose name Keanu remembered from the credits of a film he never finished. Mr. Reeves. The man said, "We need to talk." Keanu looked up, and something in his eyes changed. For the first time all day, he looked afraid. The secret inside the enveloped man who walked into that room didn't carry a badge. He didn't need to. Keanu recognized him immediately. His name was Frank Dalton. A producer, but not the Hollywood kind. Frank funded films no one could trace, documentaries that never aired. He had a face you forgot the moment he left the room and a voice that made people listen, even when they didn't want to. Keanu had seen him once before, in Berlin, at a private screening that got shut down halfway through. And now here, he was walking into a police station like he owned it. Frank didn't sit. He just dropped an envelope on the table and said, "You should open that." Keanu didn't move. "What is it?" "Answers," Frank said. "Or trouble. Depends on what you do next." The detective who'd been questioning Keanu stepped back, like someone had just lit a fuse under the table. Keanu stared at the envelope. Thick, sealed. No name, no logo, no return address. "What is this, Frank?" he asked. Frank smiled faintly. "This is why Joshua disappeared." Keanu opened the envelope slowly. Inside were photographs, not the digital kind. Actual, printed photos, glossy, sharp, recent. And each one showed something strange. The first was of a man in a suit sitting on a bench in Central Park. The second, the same man, but in a different location, standing near a government building in Geneva. The third showed that same man again, this time shaking hands with someone who had been declared dead 3 years ago. Keanu looked up. "Who is this?" Frank leaned against the wall. Someone Joshua was tracking. He believed this man was part of a global identity laundering network. "You ever heard of that?" "No." Keanu said, "It's when someone erases their past completely and replaces it with a false life so perfect, even governments believe it. So this man shouldn't exist." Frank finished. The detective closed the file on the desk. "This is way outside our jurisdiction. That's why I'm here," Frank said. Keanu's single quotes as fingers tightened around the envelope. "Why involve me?" "Because Joshua thought you were the only one who wouldn't sell him out," Frank said, almost with a trace of regret. "But I haven't heard from him in years." Frank nodded. "He was careful, paranoid, but he trusted you. And when he realized someone inside the system was watching him. He panicked. Keanu shook his head. This doesn't make sense. Why not go to the press? Why not just leave the country? Frank's voice dropped lower. Because it's not just one country. Keanu, it's not just one system. What he found connects companies, governments, tech giants, and someone very close to you. Keanu looked up sharply. What do you mean? Frank hesitated, then said one word. Christine. Christine, his publicist. But more than that, one of his oldest friends. She'd been with him through everything. Movies, heartbreak, charity work, the media storms. She handled his image, but she never used him. Or so he thought. No, Keanu said quietly. Not her. Frank slid another photo across the table. It showed Christine in a sleek black dress, talking to the man from the earlier photos. They weren't strangers. They were laughing. When was this taken? Last month, Frank said. In London. I thought she was in Los Angeles. You were supposed to think that. Keanu ran a hand through his hair. His breathing was steady, but his mind was racing. So what happens now? He asked. Frank smiled, but it wasn't warm. Now you choose. Walk away. Let this die, and maybe they let you live your life. Or look deeper. Find the pieces Joshua left behind. Finish what he started. Keanu stared at the photos again. You think I'm brave enough for that? Frank's smile faded. I think you're already in it. That night, they let Keanu go. No charges. No statement. Just silence. But the moment he stepped outside the station, Christine was there. Her eyes were red like she'd been crying. Keanu, she said. Are you okay? He looked at her carefully. Too carefully. You were in London last month. He said. She blinked. What? You said you were here. In LA I was. Don't lie. Her expression didn't change. Not right away. Then she sighed. Okay. Yes, I went for a meeting. It was supposed to be confidential. I didn't want you dragged into it. Who was the man? Just someone from a branding firm, she said. Nothing illegal. Just image management. Why? Didn't you tell me? Because Joshua was unstable, she said quickly. He was dragging you into things that didn't concern you. I tried to stop him. I told him to leave you alone. So you met him. She paused along, then said, briefly. Keanu could feel something cracking under the surface, a line being crossed that couldn't be uncrossed. Did you give them the flash drive? He asked. Christine flinched. Keanu. He stepped back. He didn't need her to answer. Her silence was the answer. Keanu didn't go home that night. He drove for hours. Through the city, into the hills, past neighborhoods he'd never seen before, until he reached a small motel. Cheap, quiet, anonymous. He needed space to think, and he needed to read the note that Frank had slipped into the envelope. Just 3 sentences. Don't trust her. Don't trust them. Your life depends on what you remember. Keanu sat on the edge of the bed and stared at those words for a long time. And then, he remembered something. A letter. From Joshua. One he thought he'd lost. Buried in a book. A book he hadn't opened in years. And that book was still in his old cabin. Far up the coast. Off the grid. No cameras. No phones. Just him, the sea, and the truth. The letter in the cabin's road to the cabin was longer than he remembered. Keanu Reeves hadn't been there in over 5 years. It was a place he used to escape to after long shoots. No Wi-Fi, no neighbors, no paparazzi, just pine trees, salt air, and silence. But now, the silence felt different, heavier, like it knew something he didn't. He pulled up to the wooden gate just as the sun began to rise. The cabin stood the same way he left it, worn down, but strong. Ivy clung to the edges of the roof. The porch creaked under his boots. He unlocked the door. Dust rose in the light. He didn't pause. He went straight to the bookshelf near the fireplace. Second row, left corner. A thick, black hardcover with no title. He opened it. Nothing on the first few pages. Then, on page 17, folded between the chapters, a letter, yellowed at the edges. Joshua's handwriting. Keanu sat down on the floor and unfolded it. Slowly. It read, if you're reading this, it means I've failed. But it also means you still have a chance. You remember that film we never made? The one about silent systems, invisible watchers. It was never fiction. I hid something, not in code, in memory, something you told me once, without knowing. Go to the place where the girl with the red umbrella smiled at you. Find the tree with the metal root. Dig. Trust only that memory. Everything else is broken. Keanu leaned his head against the wall. The girl with the red umbrella. He remembered. Her. Paris. 20 years ago. A rainy afternoon in the Jardin des Plantes. He was taking a walk, trying to stay anonymous. She passed by, looked up, smiled, and handed him a small flower. He never saw her again, but near that spot, there was a twisted metal sculpture shaped like a tree root. He thought it was art. Maybe it wasn't. He packed light. Passport, cash, the letter, and one old photograph of him and Joshua. He booked no flights, no hotel. He didn't tell anyone, not even his agent. He arrived in Paris under a different name. No one stopped him. He wore a gray coat, no hat, and walked like he didn't matter. He was used to hiding in plain sight. And soon, he stood in front of the sculpture, just as strange as he remembered. A black spiral rooted into the dirt, half covered by ivy. He waited until no one was near. Then he knelt beside it and brushed the earth away. His hands shook slightly. Something hard beneath the soil. A small tin box, sealed, cold. He pried it open. Inside was a chip and a note. Not from Joshua. From someone else. You were never supposed to find this. But if you did, it means she lied. The chip contains records, faces, meetings, voice files. Do not trust the system. They will erase it the moment it touches a network. Decode offline. Keanu put the box in his coat and turned to leave, but someone was watching. A man in a black jacket, sunglasses, no expression. He stood across the path, pretending to read a brochure. Keanu walked calmly. But inside, his heartbeat quickened. He passed the cafe, turned left, then right, down a narrow alley. He checked behind. The man was gone. But now a woman followed. New face, same eyes, same pace. He ducked into a small bookstore. The owner barely looked up. Keanu slipped into the back and waited. Minutes passed. No one entered. He slipped out the back door and vanished into the crowd. He didn't sleep that night. In a rented flat above a bakery, he examined the chip. No labels, no ports, just a microslot. He used an old, offline tablet he brought from home. No connections, no apps, just raw code. He inserted the chip. It asked for a phrase, a single passkey. He didn't know it. But then, he remembered something Joshua once told him. The truth is safest inside a lie only we believe. Keanu typed. John Wick was never about. The dog. The screen blinked. Unlocked. A folder opened. Dozens of files. Images of politicians, private jets, encrypted chats, surveillance footage, and one video titled Parliament Gate. December 19th. He clicked it. The footage showed a room. British flags in the background. 5 men in suits, 1 woman. The man in the center was the same one from the earlier photos. The man who shouldn't exist. They were discussing removal protocols. And then, someone mentioned Joshua's name. We can't allow Clay to leak it, a man said. Use the contact. The actress. Keanu froze. He rewound the tape. They weren't talking about some stranger. They were talking about him. The next morning, he got a message, slipped under his door. No sound, no knock. Just paper. They know you have it. You have 12 hours. Meet me at the place where everything ended. No name, but he recognized the handwriting. It was Joshua's, and the place was a small studio lot in Los Angeles, a studio where they first met, a studio that burned down 5 years ago. Joshua was alive, or someone wanted him to think so. Keanu booked a private jet under an old alias. Mid-flight, he stared at the chip. He didn't know if Joshua was truly alive. He didn't know if Christine had betrayed him fully or if she'd been forced. But he knew this: if what was on that chip went public, it could collapse careers, maybe countries. And if it didn't, someone else would disappear. Maybe him. When he landed, 2 cars were waiting. 1 black, 1 white. Neither had a driver. A card sat on the hood of the white one. This one keeps you alive. Keanu smiled faintly and got into the black car. The studio that burned the black car didn't move for the first 5 minutes. Keanu sat inside, waiting, hands resting calmly in his lap, eyes on the silent dashboard. Then, without a key, without a button, the engine started, and the car began to drive itself. No GPS, no screen, just the road ahead. He didn't ask where it was going, because deep down, he already knew. They were taking him to the ruins. The old film lot on the edge of Los Angeles, the one where he met Joshua all those years ago. It had burned down during what was called an electrical fault, but Keanu had always suspected that wasn't the full story. And now, the past was driving straight back toward him. The car pulled to a stop in front of what used to be Studio 9. The gate was off its hinges. The walls were scorched and collapsed. Ashes still clung to the frames like ghosts. Keanu stepped out. Wind rustled through the broken rafters. Crows called somewhere in the distance. And then he saw it. A red scarf tied to a nail. Joshua's sign. Keanu followed it through the collapsed corridor, past a shattered mirror, and into the back corner, where the fire hadn't reached, a trapdoor. He opened it slowly. Stairs led down. Into dark. No light, no sounds, no answers. Just cold air. He climbed down anyway. The room below wasn't big, just enough space for 2 desks, a mattress, and a row of monitors, all dead now. But on the wall, photos, maps, handwritten notes, the words identity, overwrite circled in red, next to a list of names, some crossed out, some still clear. His name wasn't on the wall, but Christine's was, and next to it, one word, handler. Keanu stared. It hit him harder than he expected. She hadn't just betrayed him. She'd been guiding him, protecting him, or pretending to, for years. And then he heard the door close behind him. He turned fast. A shadow moved at the top of the stairs, and then Joshua. Alive. Thin, pale, beard scruffy, but alive. Keanu stepped back in shock. You're real. Joshua smiled weakly. Not everyone wants me to be. Keanu walked forward. They said you vanished, that you leaked something. I did, Joshua said, but not to them, not yet. Why me? Joshua sat down on the edge of the mattress. His voice was quiet. Because you're the only person I ever knew who would carry a truth without using it for power. Keanu looked at the walls again. What is all this? Proof, Joshua said, that the people who manage public narratives, politicians, media faces, even some actors, are sometimes not who they say they are, or at least, not who they used to be. Keanu frowned. Like, mind control, not exactly, more like identity insertion. One person is erased, another takes their place, memories rewritten, files scrubbed, even family fooled. Keanu shook his head. That's not possible. It wasn't, Joshua said. Not until about 10 years ago. They talked for hours. Joshua explained the real program. It started as tech research, helping people with memory loss. But when defense contractors got involved, the purpose shifted. They realized they could do more than restore memory. They could replace it. And with enough digital evidence, enough deepfakes, enough controlled media, a new person could be built. Fake resumes, fake awards, even fake scandals to distract from the truth. And the people behind this, Keanu asked, hidden, powerful, scared, Joshua said. Because if the public ever knew how many of their heroes were replacements, trust would collapse. Keanu rubbed his face. So why come out now? Joshua stood, walked to a small locker, pulled out a second chip. Because they're planning something bigger, and it's already started. On the chip were plans for an upcoming conference, a global summit involving multiple nations. But hidden in the code were travel logs, showing that 6 of the delegates had identical biometric scans, even though they were supposed to be 6 different people. Clones, no. Replacements. Built identities. Joshua looked at Keanu. We can't stop it alone. Then what do? We need someone who can amplify the truth, not with panic, but with purpose. Keanu met his gaze. Me, Joshua nodded. Who else? They trust your silence. It's time they heard your voice. They left the bunker that night. The city was quiet, but Keanu's mind was in single quotes t. Every billboard, every screen, every face felt different now. How many were real? How many were chosen? He tried calling Christine. She didn't answer. He left a message. I know everything. I wish it wasn't you. Back at his home, he used an offline system to merge the two chips. Joshua guided him through it. They created a single package, video, files, testimony, and then they printed it on paper, dozens of pages. They mailed them to 10 journalists. Not digital. Old school. Because the new system couldn't delete what it couldn't find. 2 days later, the story broke. Not online. In physical newspapers. Headlines read, "A list actor involved in secret leak. Truth behind identity control exposed." Who are the people we really follow? But none of them mentioned Keanu by name. His team had made sure of that. He wasn't the story. The truth was. And then he got a call. Unknown number. He answered and heard Christine's voice. "You shouldn't have done that," she said. "Why?" he asked. "Because now they'll come for you." He paused. "Are you warning me?" Her voice cracked. "Yes." That night, he looked in the mirror for a long time. He didn't see an actor, or a hero, or a target. He saw a man who had finally chosen the hard road, and somehow, he felt lighter. Then the window shattered. And the lights went out. Hunted in silence. Glass cracked like thunder. Shards scattered across the hardwood floor. Keanu didn't move at first, just breathed in, slowly, then reached for the drawer under the lamp. Not for a weapon, but for the old flashlight he kept there, the one with no Bluetooth, no batteries that could be traced. The power was out. The lights were gone, but his instincts weren't. Someone was in the house. Maybe more than one. He moved quietly, no panic. His footsteps silent as the night outside. The sound came again. Not from the front, from the back. A soft creak of the sliding door. He stepped toward the kitchen, holding the flashlight like a blade. The hallway was dark, but he'd walked it so many times he didn't need to see it. He paused by the kitchen counter. Waited. A breath. A shadow shifted. He swung. A loud thud. A grunt. Then silence. Someone hit the floor. Keanu shined the light down. A man in black. Mask. Gloves. No insignia. Unconscious. But that meant he wasn't alone. He turned fast and saw the second one. This one raised something. Not a gun. A scanner. It pulsed red. Keanu dropped low. The beam missed. He kicked the man's leg. Hard. The device flew from his hand. They struggled. Fast. Rough. Silent. Keanu pinned him down with a knee and pulled the mask off. Young. Maybe 25. Too clean for a thief. Too skilled for a rookie. "Who sent you?" Keanu whispered. The man didn't answer. Just stared with cold, robotic eyes. And then, he smiled, not with emotion, with programming. Keanu tied both men up with cords and duct tape. He called Joshua. "They found me," Keanu said. Joshua didn't sound surprised. "I thought they might. They're not government. They're freelance. Private security with no name." "Who do they work for?" "The people who built the replacements." "How do they know where I am?" "Your house has always been compromised. You just didn't know it." Keanu looked around at the walls. Pictures, awards, old guitars. All watching him back. He grabbed what he needed, the 2 chips, the printed pages, and the small backup drive Joshua gave him. He slipped out the side door before backup could arrive. The next few days, he disappeared. No phone, no credit cards, no friends. Just a burner, cash, and cities that never looked twice at a face. He changed motels every night, wore glasses, sometimes a limp. He met Joshua twice, briefly, in underground parking lots. They weren't just hiding, they were planning. Because now, they had something new. A list, not just of replaced identities, but of the handlers, people who supervised the process, who approved which lives were erased and which were created. There were over 50 names, and one of them was a Hollywood director. His name was Martin Calder. He'd made 5 box office hits in the last decade, praised for realism, for making the audience feel watched, because he knew how to make people feel that way. He'd once offered Keanu a role. A dark, political thriller. Keanu turned it down. The script felt wrong, too close to real secrets. Now he knew why. Martin wasn't a director. He was a recruiter. His films were tests, screenings. The people who reacted correctly were logged. The people who didn't disappeared. Joshua had uncovered the algorithm behind it. He's not the only one, Joshua said, but he's the most public. So what do we do? Keanu asked. We make him expose himself. They set a trap. Keanu would agree to meet Martin. Pretend he was interested in a comeback project, a story about identity, about blurred truth. They knew Martin couldn't resist. And Keanu? He'd wear a wire. Not a digital one. An old analog recorder. Impossible to jam. The meeting was set at a private villa in Malibu. Keanu arrived at sunset. No team. Just him. Martin greeted him with a smile. And a drink. You look tired, he said. Long week, Keanu replied. Well, let's make it interesting. They sat by the fire, talked about film, about truth through fiction, and then Martin leaned in. You ever wonder what makes a story real? Keanu didn't blink. You think it's acting or lighting, but it's control, total control. The audience has to believe they're choosing to watch, even if they're being shown only what we allow. Keanu set his glass down. You sound more like a magician than a director. Is there a difference? He laughed. Then said something he didn't realize would change everything. The trick, Keanu, is not erasing someone. It's replacing them so well that even their mother forgets. Keanu stood. I remember Joshua, he said. Martin's single quotes as smile faded. He was weak, he replied. He didn't see the future. But you could help shape it. No thanks, Keanu said. And walked out. The next day, Joshua uploaded the recording to 10 separate mail drops. Not online. But timed for delivery to trusted reporters. With timestamps, with visual footage, and Martin's voice. The trap had worked, but the cost came fast. That night, Keanu's face appeared on every major news station. Not for the leak. But for something worse. Keanu Reeves under investigation for stolen classified data. Unnamed whistleblower claims actor helped foreign agents. Joshua called. They're flipping the story, he said. Of course they are, Keanu replied. What now? Now we go louder. They scheduled a public appearance, a charity event. Live streamed. No filters. Keanu walked on stage. Crowd silent. Journalists waiting. Phones raised. He took a deep breath, then said quietly, I've always tried to let my work speak for me, but some truths need a voice, even if it costs me everything. He reached into his jacket, held up the chip. This is not fiction. This is not a movie. This is what they don't want you to see. And then the screen behind him flickered and showed the footage of Martin Calder. His voice, his words, his truth. The audience gasped. The internet exploded, and far away, someone gave the order. Take him down. Asterisk the man who stood aloneth. Moment the screen cut to black. The crowd surged forward. Some clapped, some screamed, some simply stared. Keanu stood motionless on stage, the chip still in his hand, heart pounding in his chest like a war drum. He had just exposed something that wasn't supposed to exist, not on TV, not in whispers, not in thoughts. A security guard rushed toward him, then stopped, recognized him, hesitated. And that hesitation was everything, because it gave Keanu the seconds he needed to step off stage. Joshua was waiting behind the curtain. You really did it, he whispered. You actually did it. Keanu didn't smile. He couldn't. They're going to come, he said. Joshua nodded. They already are. They slipped out through the service hall. The building was already in lockdown mode. But they had planned this exit. Joshua knew someone in security, a man who owed him from long ago. The back door was unguarded, but a black van sat parked across the alley. Engine running. Keanu paused. The van didn't move. He grabbed Joshua's arm. Run. They darted left, cutting through an alley full of trash bins and neon signs. A soft hum followed them. Drones. They moved fast, but Keanu and Joshua ducked under an awning, slipped into a stairwell, and bolted into a laundromat. They blended into a crowd of late-night workers and broken machines. A woman handed Keanu a baby sock. You dropped this, she said. He hadn't, but he smiled. Thank you, even here. In this moment, kindness still existed. They didn't go back to the safe house. It was compromised now. Instead, they went to a rooftop above a parking garage. The same place Joshua once lived for 3 months when no one knew his name. Keanu sat on the edge, legs swinging, watching the city lights shimmer like stars trying to speak. Joshua lit a cigarette, offered one. Keanu shook his head. You ever wonder, Joshua asked, what would have happened if we'd never started that film? Keanu thought, then said, we'd still be living lies, just quieter ones. Joshua exhaled smoke. You think people will believe what they saw? Maybe not all, Keanu said, but enough. And he was right, because by morning, the leak had gone viral. Not through mainstream channels. They tried to suppress it, but the people shared it, clipped it, dubbed it, translated it, posted it again and again. Every time it was taken down, someone put it back up. It couldn't be erased. The truth had teeth now, but the price came fast. The next day, Keanu's bank accounts were frozen. His publicist, not Christine, announced his contract terminations. His face disappeared from posters, from streaming sites, from search engines. He was being erased. But this time, the world noticed. Hashtags flooded the web. Hashtag keep the truth. Hashtag we are watching you. Hashtag no take. Keanu fans made videos of his past acts of kindness. Interviews, moments no algorithm could delete. And then something happened no one expected. A former senator came forward. Anonymous at first, then named, then public. She confirmed the replacement program. She gave names, dates, signed affidavits. And more followed. A journalist in Spain, a former tech engineer in Korea, an ex-bodyguard from Australia. Each one adding another crack to the wall. Until finally, it broke. Within 2 weeks, multiple agencies launched investigations. Arrests began quietly. Not for show, but for justice. Martin Calder was the first. He claimed innocence, but the tape said otherwise. Then came Christine. They found her in a private retreat in Iceland. Keanu watched the footage in silence. She didn't resist, but when she saw the cameras, she said only one thing. I told him they'd come. He didn't listen. Keanu stayed hidden through it all. Not because he was afraid, but because he didn't want to become the focus. The truth was bigger than him. This was never about fame, never about proving anything. It was about stopping something before it became permanent. Weeks passed. Life tried to return to normal. But the world had changed. Not overnight, not completely, but people started asking questions. About who they followed, about what they believed, about where truth really lived. One morning, Keanu stood on the same beach where he once shot a scene in silence. Alone, barefoot, waves touching his feet. Joshua joined him. They're offering you a role, Joshua said. Who? Netflix. Something about redemption. Keanu laughed softly. Let me guess, a man falsely accused, hunted by the people he once trusted. Joshua grinned. Something like that. Maybe, Keanu said. But first, I need to rest. Maybe plant a tree. Something real. You deserve that. Keanu turned to him. So do you. As they walked away, a child nearby asked his mother, who's that man? The mother looked. Smiled, and said, someone who told the truth, and didn't run from it.